Hi, this is Dr. George Pereira, and welcome back to English for Specific Purposes, Topic 3 English for Academic Purposes. So, EAP, English for Academic Purposes or Study Purposes. This is for students, adult students, and even for young students. So, this could include native English speakers and non-native learners. For example, people from Sri Lanka going to Australia or USA or England. So for them, English is a second language. Then for the Americans or British or the Australians, English is the first language. So native and non-native. So the point is that the latter ones or the non-native ones need to practice, learn both the language and the study skills. And I would add, they have to learn the language and the content. So let us move forward. There are 4 types of English for academic purposes situations. So English for academic purposes in an English speaking country, for example USA. In such countries, English courses are primarily prepared for international students, pre-sessional and in-sessional courses. Pre-sessional and in-sessional. That means when they have the orientation, there will be English course for them to teach the language. Then while the course, university courses are going on, they will have English language help. So the first one is more centered on academic language and study skills and normally lasts 4 to 12. So the latter one is centered around detailed academic skills work. For example, reading in a particular subject area, writing in that, and listening and speaking. Then the second one is English for academic purposes in an ESL situation, British colonies in Africa or Southeast Asia. Having learned general English in prior levels, students need to practice study skills and specific usage of language in conformity with the area they are going to study or work. For example, economics. So they have the general English knowledge, but now this is for specific purpose to study economics and also to work in the field of economics. Then third one, English for specific purposes in situations where only some certain subjects are taught in English during the tertiary level. For example, medicine in Jordan. The education up to the tertiary level has been in local language, and students are poor even in general English. It could be also the Sri Lankan context. As a result, it is common to give lectures and discuss in a mixed language, or give lectures in native language, but they are assigned English textbooks. That can happen when they go for higher studies. Assignments, reports, and papers written in English are poorly executed, but in most cases, the grammatical and lexical errors are overlooked. So that can happen when they go for higher studies or tertiary education, they have to study in English. So then Graves, the theorist, proposes the idea of formal orders, where there is a formal system to order and obedient students are to follow. And then informal orders where students run the system. In this type of EAP situation, Swali studies an institute in which formal orders allocated 50 of the mark for written report and the 50 to a map. But the informal order showed the stipulation of 90% to the map. So this is following the ESP model. So certain things are overlooked when you teach English for academic purposes in their tertiary level education. Some of these aspects can be seen also in the Sri Lankan context. If the students go for private institutes, educational institutes, and affiliated with foreign countries, if they have to study in English medium, so this situation can be found. So then the last one, ESP, in countries that local language is the means of instruction, but still there is an English course in timetable. So EAP is sometimes called technical English. English for academic purposes is called technical English and taught in universities. Courses are in sessional. Language institutes cannot provide an answer to the learner's true needs, and it results in students' lack of motivation, as well as institutes wasting their resources. Now take the contexts in Sri Lanka. And for example, IHS, we have nurses from the government sector coming in. Some of them have studied nursing in English and others have studied nursing in the nursing school in Sinhala. When they come to IHS, so they are given some background English knowledge for some of them, and we call the orientation time. And then they have the courses in English medium, nursing subjects from OUM, as well as they also have English courses such as English for oral communication and written communication. So both aspects are taught, and also the studies are done in English. So then how do we apply this so-called EAP situation, 50-50 or 90? So that is a question. Then also we have students after A-level going to German Tech and other areas, and some of the terms are in English actually, or technical names. So how do we apply that? So these are situations in Sri Lanka. So applying some of these methods, I think we Sri Lankans are mostly on this C method, and this one. So we have to adjust our courses based on the situation in Sri Lanka. Then English for academic purposes, general academic purposes, and English for specific academic purposes. General academic purposes could include language that is common to all the disciplines. For example, attending, all disciplines. There are general things for all the disciplines, the general English. Then also the English for specific academic purposes, for a specific context. So there is a difference between the two. So ESAP refers to the teaching of the features that distinguish one discipline from another. For English for economics, English for medicine, English for science and mathematics, English for art, for example. So ESAP courses are training centered, and EGAP courses are education based, according to one theorist. But the current book believes that it is the way around according to the definitions of training and education presented in the pages 42 of the text. So let us go to the different disciplines. So engaging in different disciplines, there are three levels of cooperation in subject-specific work. So it is proposed that there are three levels of cooperation. when it comes to subject specific work. For example, English for medical students. So it's a subject specific. There are 3 levels of cooperation in English for specific purposes. English for specific academic purposes. Cooperation. First, we have to do the target situation analysis or needs analysis. What are the needs of the students? So the teacher has to collect the information, and then such needs should suit the objectives of the course. And the teacher has to learn about the conceptual and discoursal framework of the subjects as well. For example, English for hotel trade, hospitality trade. So that's, what kind of discourse. Then English for medicine. Then collaboration. So the collaboration, the success is dependent on the cooperation of language teacher and the subject teacher. That's very essential. In the US, even in K-12 education, if students are immigrants to the country, for example, there can be programs where the English language teacher and the subject specialist teacher work together. It's called English across the curriculum. Then the number C, team teaching. The actual working together of the language and subject teacher is called team teaching. Researchers done in the Birmingham School, outstanding ones in the area. It examines listening comprehension and academic writing of the students and consists of 4 stages, as in the page number 46 of the text. So you can read that area. The critical issue is the relationship between the 2 teachers. If they do not trust each other, then it's critical or suspicious about the job. It will not bring any good. So this is a new area. English across the curriculum, subject teacher and English teacher working together. So think about it. I think we need it in Sri Lanka so that it will be very essential. Then from English for academic purposes, we narrow it down to professional disciplines, whether it is in EAP or EOP, English for academic purposes, or English for occupational purposes. To narrow down EAP, it should serve as a particular discipline and therefore become EST, English for science and technology. Academic purposes, then it narrows down to English for science and technology. Then EMP, English for medical purposes, English for legal purposes, and so forth. So as a result, there would be a confusion on labeling professional disciplines. So should we put them to academic or occupational category? But we can distinguish it. The medical English taught to medical students would be categorized as academic, medical English to students, while the medical English practiced by the doctors and the consultant in hospitals will be regarded as English for occupational purposes. So, the difference is in the needs they satisfy. So, students need to read textbooks or write essays, while the doctors, they need to prepare a paper or do a presentation at a conference or communicate with a patient. So 3 areas of research in medical English for occupational purposes may include the use of English in written medical communication, the delivery of papers and slide presentations in English, and the role of English in doctor-patient interaction. It's different from a medical student's English need. So that's the difference. So there have been some researches regarding the relationship of English and other academic disciplines. So English for medical purposes, English for legal purposes. So in the future, there will be more analysis by exploring less examined disciplines. The point is that in our time, the solid look at English teaching as an isolated skill has not reached a conclusion. So what works best is the infusion of actual subject materials to provide the context for language use. So think about these points. And English for academic purposes, English for occupational purposes. Then also in English for academic purposes, you have the general purposes and the specific purposes in certain subject areas. For example, science, mathematics, arts, commerce, religion, and so forth. Different disciplines. Okay, so let us go through some questions. Think of an EAP, English for academic purpose situation, and describe the constraints that the teacher will have to work under. Think about English for academic purposes, English for general academic purposes, English for specific academic purposes. See? What is the relationship between these two? General academic, specific academic. What are the peculiarities of English for occupational purpose in regard to professional disciplines? Let's see some answers. EAP in ESL situations, different language abilities among students, may include the need to develop communication skills, need to motivate, need to adjust to language demands of tertiary education, language demands for higher studies. Then question 2, both are branches of ESP. EGAP encompasses, means general academic, encompasses the teaching of skills and language that are common to all disciplines, general English. But ESAP, specific academic, is more specific. For example, EGAP means thesis writing, report writing, academic reading at the tertiary level. But ESAP involves the transferring of EGAP skills for more specific purposes, specific departmental needs, English for statisticians, for example. Then English for occupational purposes can branch off from English for academic purposes. Students of medicine may undergo EAP courses. In the workplace, consultants and practicing doctors may use English relevant to their occupations. So that's the difference. And then English for legal cases, for the lawyers, that's another discipline. So think about these various disciplines and how you can develop courses for different purposes. So good luck and thank you. Let us move to the next topic in a while.